Hi everybody! It's the cast of Dragon Age Resurgence, and we're doing session 10 vlog, and here we go. We're brought by Beans Practical Products and Practical Ponies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, does anyone have any thoughts?
I gave Payne's Practical Products an endorsement, celebrity style now.
Yeah, you
Yeah. Yeah. There could be a thing in Tevinter now because Kenna was handing out the cards.
Yeah.
I was.
Wow.
Oh,
What did you think, Andrea, about your trip to Tevinter?
Yeah, how'd that work out for you, honey?
It's stressful. I didn't really know how to react to that whole reaction. The lady with the rock. I was like, well, how would Andrea react in this situation? And it was hard to come up with a good answer because she's kind of distanced herself from feeling bad about that at all at this point. So she's like, somebody hates me, who cares? But then she got arrested, and her friends are like, Andrea, we have to do something. And she's like, I don't want to, but fine. She went and talked to the lady. I think the most surprising thing for her was how immediately everyone was stepping up for her, because she's not used to people defending her at all. And she's like, okay, we're doing this. Theo was the one who made sense in that moment. He's like, guys, let's calm down. And Andrea's like, probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very interesting moment for me because, it reminded me of Theo's wife and how she died and how he might feel in that situation. And I just thought, yeah, he'd do exactly the same thing. He would have made a scene as well. That guy, he never got to speak to that guy. He never got to approach him and ask him why he took the dwarven rule too far and actually killed during approving. So I think he would have wanted to know. And so Theo was like, okay, in this situation, I'd want to speak to this person. And if that guy just turned away from me and ignored me like Andrea was doing, that would really piss me off. And I wouldn't ever want someone else to go through that. So in that moment, it was like, Hallie, calm down. This woman is not the devil incarnate. She's lost her husband. And he really thought Andrea should talk to her, and it meant a lot that she listened to him.
She did, but I don't know how productive the conversation was.
Yeah.
I'm very grateful that the roles came out the way that they did, because if Cedric saw it and if she hit Andrea, there would have been a really big problem.
Totally.
It would have turned violent really fast.
What?
Yep.
We were so worried about that. I could see when Cedric started getting really aggressive, I think a lot of us were like, oh no, we're going to get into a fight.
I was looking forward to that. I'm just like, oh yeah, he's finally doing. Oh yeah, Cedric.
Oh god, what? We're going to take on the entire of Tevinter?
Let's do it.
Two guards, come on.
The guard thing.
Yeah, but you
weird.
start attacking those guards, then more guards are gonna come, and suddenly you've created a name for yourself and a face for yourself, and yeah.
Rebellion!
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think they would outright attack the guards, unless they provoked.
Well, they
first.
could have attacked you, considering you did scream at them, and if you hadn't have rolled and high enough intimidate, I would have imagined. I don't know. DM.
It would have been a huge mistake if they did. But
Yeah.
That scene was designed to get everybody to place themselves in different sides of the fence, because obviously we know Andrea, obviously we love Andrea, obviously, we tend to be on the side of the protagonists. But I also wanted to go around and challenge some things, because she's killed a lot of people, regardless of whether or not she was forced to or not. The fact of the matter is, her hand has led to a lot of people's losses, and to her, they're just numbers.
Yep.
And I think a lot of what the woman said and did, regardless of how foolish you thought she was being and how unreasonable you thought she was being, she did make a lot of very good points that, it seemed like, to her, it seemed like the only reason why Andrea cared is because she actually, put her on the spot. If she had not thrown the stone at her at all, Andrea would have continued on and continued thinking of people as numbers. And maybe she still thinks of people as numbers. Maybe this whole situation didn't make her think about any of the fact that some of these people were other people's husbands, wives, sons, daughters. And as she's told Cedric a few sessions before, she had to turn that off in order for her to be able to do this for as long as she has in order to survive. I like what you guys were saying during the session about how everybody in these situations tend to be prisoners of their own circumstances.
Yep.
Because the grass is always greener. She sees her as getting all this glory and being, a bit glorified for doing what she does, regardless of whether or not she's forced to. And she gets all these really nice jewelry and she gets fed. This family doesn't get that at all.
Yep.
All her husband did was he stole pieces of bread to feed his family, and then he ended up paying the price for that.
Yep.
You have these guards. The guards were just doing their job. Granted, they could have been a lot more civil and a lot nicer about it, but at the end of the day, they also were doing what they were told
Right.
by their book. So it was a situation that I threw in just because I had no idea which of the characters would end up siding with. And I kind of liked that Theoben questioned even stuff that was going on with Halasair. And because Halasair was reacting to things, Theoben was reacting to things, Cedric reacted to things, Andrea was reacting to things. I want to ask what was going on in Kenna's head.
Yeah.
Because she didn't do anything, which is fine, but I do want to take a step back and find out what was going on with her head with all of that.
I did want to speak out, but it just didn't seem like the right time, I guess. I don't know. Because it was getting really heated. But
right. So what was she thinking?
She was just super confused by the whole situation. Because she didn't understand why they were getting mad at each other when it was people who were forcing them to do things. Like, why aren't you mad at the person in charge, your leaders? Because when she looks at a city, she thinks, okay, this is a really big hold, and everyone is working together somehow, but they're not.
Yeah.
And she doesn't understand, why wouldn't she be mad at your Thane, your leader, who's put you in this situation? Like, I don't get it. So
I think she was.
Where she was coming from.
I think she is. I think she was, and it's just Andrea was there.
Yeah.
And
I liked that you brought that up later in the session, though, Sam. Like,
yeah.
Why would they do that? And Andrea's like, because I have a face, and Tavindra doesn't, so
right.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is what it is. Not all people like me. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm personally glad that I had a character that felt the way that he did, because watching that scene, I did feel, and this is more like as me, not as Theo, I felt that it was starting to get very skewed towards Andrea, and nobody was really seeing this woman's point of view or side. And then Hallie started screaming at her. I was like, guys, whether she was forced or not, Andrea did kill this guy, and literally all he did was steal bread. And I can completely understand. Was it Andrea's fault or not? That's another discussion, but it happened. This woman suffered for it. And, just speaking as a player, she was really vilified for how she acted. And, me as a player watching that, I was like, thank God I have a character that can at least speak out in some respect, because, I felt that the other side needed to be told. I'm with Hark, as much as we understand Andrea and why she's done what she's done, and that she doesn't take pride or feel glad that she's taking lives. She doesn't feel anything from what we've found out. It was important to get that other side of view for the people that are just watching her signing autographs and, getting all the glory when she's killing people.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me, and I very much appreciate Theo for that as well, because in the beginning Halasair was trying to stop the lady, and she had it in her mind that if she could just get the lady and her kids out of the way quietly. She could sit her down, talk to her, see what's going on. I had fully intended on walking out of there having given this lady her entire purse. Just, you know what? Yeah, life's unfair here. It's really rough when the laws of the land are conflicting exactly with the, like, she kind of sees the situation in Tevinter as, unsurprisingly, very messed up because she's not from there. She doesn't understand it. Like, no, to her mind, she has a fury in her that Andrea is a slave in the first place. She doesn't understand the societal intricacies in that particular country, and she just doesn't like it, flat out doesn't like it. So yeah, in the beginning she was totally sympathetic to this lady because it is stupid for somebody to die at the hands in a gladiator pit for stealing some food. So yeah, she had intended originally on just quietly handling the situation, getting the people out of there, giving away all her money to these poor kids. And then it kind of got worse from there. And then as she continued screaming, like, there was a point where the accusations turned... it's kind of hard to describe. Basically,
she was being protective, I think. I think that protectiveness over Andrea kind of kicked in, and it was more about protecting and defending her, would you say?
That was part of it. I would also say that while the lady was accusing Andrea, there was like this point where, like, Hallie always feels that your action, you choose your own actions, and you will have to deal with those consequences. So, you know, if Andrea did something against the law, then yeah, she should be judged for it. And, you know, it was the lady's choice to take her own action and physically assault Andrea. She should be held responsible for those actions. Should she be killed for throwing a rock? No. So at that point, Hallie started feeling a little crisscrossed because now she's kind of got to defend Andrea from the lady, defend the lady from the guards. So it was starting to get weird. So I actually was really, really happy that Theo interjected.
It was also what I found also interesting was I had fully intended on Razakale to react more as well, like because you know how very protective she is of Andrea.
Of course.
But something that I ended up inadvertently, well, because it just kind of flowed out, something that the woman Miriam ended up saying kind of made me think, well, maybe Razakale doesn't do as much because she's torn about something, because one of the woman, the essence of what the woman was saying was she and people like her, the people that are invisible in Tevinter like her, just want to be heard, which is a big part of Razakale's theme as a character. So I was about to jump in with Razakale. I was like, wait, she said that though, and I think that would affect her in that way. So Razakale kind of just stepped back a little bit because she wants to protect Andrea. She also doesn't have any love for Tevinter, and you know, if she could, she would just burn the whole city down. And I think she still understood what this woman was trying to do, trying to put a face and a name to people like her. She did it in a way that was probably not productive and probably really didn't do anything in the long run and probably made things worse. But I thought it was a very important thing to present, given the situation that you guys were in.
That's the thing with Andrea too. Like, she doesn't believe in acting on emotion. She doesn't believe in that. She works really hard not to, because that's how she's, you know, stayed from being possessed. So you don't act on emotion. I think she understands the woman, and she can sympathize with the woman, but I think she was kind of irritated with the woman for not understanding what she had done, because I mean, your kids are going to die because of what you just did, just because you had to throw a rock at me. Like, I don't really care about you right now. You have children, and they're going to die because of this stupid act. Like, and that really bothered Andrea. Like, just allowing your anger to make you sacrifice your children made no sense to her. Even though, of course, you know, when you act on emotion, it's not logical, but it really bothers Andrea. So,
oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was done. Yeah.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I found it interesting when the scene like started to play out. I was like, oh no, like, because Andrea had told Cedric to just kind of like keep a low key kind of thing, because it's like, hey, this is kind of like a different place and whatnot. And luckily he didn't see like her throw the rock and she didn't get hit. And when the woman was screaming at her, he witnessed Andrea just kind of like shrug it off. So he was like, all right, it's not affecting her. So that's why he didn't interject. And he didn't start to interject. Like he was approaching just to kind of gauge the situation. And the reason why he did end up interjecting with the guard is because, like, she was saying that she was like a slave, but then the guard kind of like started to say like, you need to know your place, slave, or like something like that. And he kind of like got a sense that like that was a big no-no, like to like say that to Andrea or something, like, because and then that's when he was like, no, like I'm gonna step in right now and we need to diffuse the situation because
it is a no-no. Not even Bostwick calls me a slave.
Yeah. So I mean, that was his whole thing, and he felt bad for the woman, but in the long run he was more focused on Andrea, like not from like is she like actually hurting from this? He was like, don't let your emotions take over and don't like do something stupid.
The other interesting thing about this situation is the consequences of how the fans feel after the fact. Because I think a lot of them were definitely also excited to see the bolt of justice, take care of this woman who dares to, interrupt all they're doing is just having fun and, enjoying the day and getting this autograph from this really famous person, and who is this woman to come right up and just completely spoil their day? So it's interesting to see if that will come back and bite the group later in the butt. Not the fanny, the butt.
Right. Yeah, their reaction hurt Andrea a lot. Like that was the one thing that really bothered her, because she's like, okay, I'm doing this because my friends have told me to do this, but I'm really not happy that I have to act in this way, and now I'm losing the one group of people who have supported me for the last 12 years, and it wasn't cool. Like, she was not cool with that at all. That's her support system, and now she's losing it.
She's still got one.
I feel like if Andrea or somebody else maybe looked at the support network she thinks she had, I think you'd find that it wasn't probably the best people to have supporting you anyway, because they just like you when you're killing people, and they just like you when you do well, and the second you're not doing well, oh, she's nothing to me.
Well, that's true, but it's still all she had. Like,
the crowd.
But she doesn't anymore, so, hearts.
I mean, this may sound lame, but I think it's so cool that there's so many different perspectives for just the same, like, encounter. We all look at it completely a different way, and I think that's really cool that we get to, like, talk about this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you would see that when you watch the actual session, but I really love that we get to see all of the, like, the thought processes behind all the characters, even, like, the NPCs and the crowd and the guards.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's meant to. I love when we're able to hit scenes that make you think, because I think everyone can relate to a situation like this. It's an uncomfortable situation to be in, but I think it has ties to a lot of things that happen in the real world too. And although it's something that, you know, this whole playing a game, it's supposed to be escapism and all that, but I think that there's value also in finding the time to dissect a scene like this and just discuss it in a mature way, because I think there's just a lot of awesome perspectives and things we can learn from it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Now it's time to dissect why we picked what horses we picked.
There's nothing to dissect there. She wanted something pretty. Yeah.
Pretty, practical, and then a random one.
Pretty practical ponies.
So do some rando pony.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the camp scenes were really interesting. Cedric and Kenna, and Cedric and Theo, and the bracer scene. That was also very cool. Especially how we ended up tying like 3 different conversations together.
I love that. That was so fun.
I think I rephrased it every time I said it as well. I think
that's okay.
In the line every time I did it.
It's Inception.
I think one of them is your mark hurting? Another one is your mark acting up? It's just like, yeah, it's different. I use different wording. I didn't mean to, but thinking back, yeah, there's 3 different versions of Theo all saying different things.
Congratulations, we just made another 3 realities.
Thanks a lot, Theo.
Maybe in one of them, Cedric never died. No. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I really liked all the scenes I got to do with Razakil that session.
I
loved getting to talk with her. It was so cool.
Yeah, because you guys haven't talked in a while. Like,
yeah, she's been in Orlais for a long time now.
Yeah. A lot of because Razakil has gotten close with Andrea,
Pretty. And
with Pretty, and I don't know if they've had a lengthy conversation. If she's had a lengthy conversation with the Queen, or Broody, or she did with Theoben. Yeah. So those are like the 3 with Arrow. Thank you. Those are the 3 that she ended up, and apparently I'm sure she's got. Obviously, off camera, she bonded quite a bit with Feathers. So.
Yep.
I like how Razakil really stood out this session. I think you did a great job in portraying her, and I loved that she wanted to go see her people first, and that she had a reaction to how the players felt about that.
Yeah.
She was very center spotlight in this session as an NPC, and it was really interesting to get to know more of that side of her.
Absolutely, and the further we got into that game, I'd been thinking that for a while Halisar needed to actually have a nice long conversation with Razakil after the end of the session. It's really gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Yes. I sometimes play in my mind after you guys finish the session, because I feel like Razakil was an obvious choice to bring with you for this particular portion, but I'm trying to I started thinking about what would have happened if you guys didn't bring Razakil with you to this part? How would that have?
Yeah.
Angry Razakil.
I think a lot of things.
I feel like it would have been like Shale from Origins, in which she'd have been really angry, and if you picked the wrong dialogue option, she'd just outright attack or leave the party.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure. We're fast forwarding it a little bit, but since you were talking about Fergus as well, I was debating on whether or not to drop Fergus in that scene, or keep Bellum the Blade alive for a little bit, because I thought that part of me felt that dropping Fergus there would be cheating too much, because I felt that you guys are already being sympathetic towards the Darkspawn group through Razakil. I mean, if you look back on how your characters were treating Razakil at the beginning compared to now, I mean, you guys were talking about how cold Hugh was, And I was like, oh, come on. You guys were like ready to kill her at a moment's notice. And you said that that Hugh was cold.
We were
Back in session 2. Back in session 2.
You kind of like, oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah. I kind of felt like maybe I shouldn't put Fergus in there because then it would be harder. Then it might have been a harder choice to choose between Fergus versus the Kal-Sharok dwarves. But I liked Fergus. So I liked Fergus.
Yeah.
So I threw him in there. Because I actually was debating on, did Fergus die or did he not die? And I just made a decision near the end. I thought, I'm keeping him alive for now. All right, we'll put him in there.
For now.
So, for now.
Yeah. Theo's been in a state of shock about that pretty much like this entire session about I just wanted to kill Darkspawn. Every dwarf does. These are our enemies. What on earth is going on here, and why are they trying to make allies with us? At the very least, they should be kind of staying away from us. Why are you coming up and expecting us all to accept you? There's a lot of like I was so quiet near the end of that session, or compared to how I might have done, but it was because Theo was in such shock that he couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. He didn't understand why they were doing this, why they were trying to force something that was controversial to the dwarves and probably going to get them killed, get them attacked. But at the same time, damn it, Rozzy. He doesn't see Razakel as an enemy anymore. It'd be so much easier if he did.
Yeah.
He doesn't see Razakel as an enemy, and it was really hard to see the family of Darkspawn. It still creeps him out that they reproduce, but he couldn't see them as enemies. And that was really difficult for him. I'm still in my head going over how is he processing this and what's going through his mind, because it's just such a huge bombshell on a dwarf that's been taught to hate them.
I think I mentioned this in an earlier vlog, because before the campaign started and I was going through the NPCs trying to decide when the timing of introducing NPCs to you. And originally I was thinking of not introducing Razakel to you guys until a few sessions in and not in session 1. But knowing this session would come at some point, I felt like you guys need time to sympathize. If this decision would even be an option on the table, your characters need time to sympathize with Razakel's character. And the best chance that she has is if I introduce her at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I popped out another character to introduce and popped Razakel in. Hugh got in earlier too because he needed to spin off all of the weird stuff going on with Cedric. So that's why those two ended up in the beginning of this campaign the way that they did. So it's really cool to see Theoben's, at least his attitude towards Darkspawn in general, evolve over time. And I think it's because he was given the time to digest it.
Yeah. Even though it still feels like to him he should be rejecting it. Because it's completely against everything that dwarves stand for. And regardless of whether it was their Darkspawn or a different type of Darkspawn, they did more or less swallow up the Dwarven Empire. And just because they don't hear the calling anymore doesn't make that any less true. It's going to be interesting playing him going forward in this particular story arc, because it's such a bombshell.
The same thing can be said about the Grey Wardens. This is going completely against what the Grey Wardens stand for. And when I started designing the story, part of me was hoping, I hope I either get a dwarf or a Grey Warden in the party, like one of the PCs. So I didn't get the Grey Warden, so I'm super glad that I ended up with Theoben, because I thought having a Grey Warden in the party would add another interesting perspective to this scene. So.
And admittedly, one of the things I'd wanted when I was considering the character I wanted to play, I would have loved to play a warden, but I kind of felt that was too advanced a starting character, so I went with something safe and a nondescript PC. But I am really, really looking forward to seeing how Theo continues to react. And Hallie's kind of in the same boat, maybe not to such an extreme, but for somebody who's been raised with the chant their entire life, yeah, she does try to go the historical route, but there's still all like the world is still trained to think, no, darkspawn are the exact they're the hubris brought on by men's trespass into the kingdoms of the maker. So to see those darkspawn families with the kids playing in the street, that really shook her. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in town.
Yeah, I'm really excited for any future auditions for like season 3 and all that. If this goes well, because you could have dwarven mages, you could have darkspawn. Like it's opening up a lot
that'll
of
be interesting
for future seasons.
That's why I wanted to do all of those for season 2, was because I wanted season 3. I wanted people to have more options of the kind of characters they wanted to build. So if you wanted to have a dwarf who was magical, if you wanted to have a darkspawn, we did have somebody audition with a darkspawn, which I'm very happy about. It might be possible now. And I think that I love it because it's the world of the universe that we're building. It's a living and breathing thing. And based on what happens in the next session, it's the things that you heroes are doing is a big deal. You are affecting the world in very large ways, and I hope you realize how rewarding that can be, because one of the things that people had a big problem with Dragon Age 2, for example, is I didn't feel like my Hawk affected things enough. Like I did a lot of things as Hawk that affected Kirkwall, but not nearly to the same degree as I did with my Warden in Dragon Age Origins. So I wanted to make sure that the actions that you guys did in season 2 mattered, and that you would see consequences of those actions in future seasons from now, including giving people more options of having more different characters.
I liked Cedric's mindset going into the Darkspawn place was kind of like Rachel, like he knows like the chant and like all of that stuff, but I mean it's kind of like out of his area. It's not really like his thing. But one thing that did kind of like have the eyebrow raised is when he described how Grey Wardens became Grey Wardens and how they became sentient beings. It's like, oh, we drink blood of Darkspawn, or oh, we drink blood of Grey Wardens. He was like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Like,
That is...
I couldn't let that go. I was like, and where are you getting this blood? Like,
well,
yeah.
The joining is that the Grey Wardens do is technically blood magic.
Yeah,
The joining is blood
the
magic.
thing. It's not that they were like, I mean, it is weird that they were drinking blood, and it's like, oh, where'd you get the blood? But it's like, no, wait, what are you
Where'd it
doing
come from?
specifically?
To get the blood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder how Andrea's gonna really react to that. Her childhood brother being all a blood mage. How you feel about that there?
she's not really good with it.
I'm sure that won't come to a head.
Totally cool blood magic.
Yeah, but,
Or we want to kill them all. One or the other.
There we go.
Foot on the brake or foot on the gas, so you gotta.
I mean, the logic with the Grey Wardens is stop the blight at any cost, so that would have been his logic.
Right.
It was funny because it seemed like it was just kind of like slipped in there too, like, oh well, this is how they did it, and then this is how we do it, like.
Yep.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Wait, no, Cedric would be like, huh?
But
blood magic.
you have to admit, I mean, the architect was very honest.
Yeah, he was.
He didn't sugarcoat anything. Yeah. You asked him where did he get the blood from the Grey Wardens from, and he was very honest with his answer.
That was the scary thing about him in Awakening as well. He just kind of outwardly just told you all this stuff. It's like, I'm not really okay with this, but he is honest. Do I spare him? Do I kill him? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Well, it is stopping the blight just by choice instead of stopping a mindless enemy.
Yeah, and I really liked actually that Fergus corrected Theoben when he said, you know, isn't that what you do, kill Darkspawn? And he went, no, what we do is end the blight. I really liked that little touch.
Me too.
Me too.
I like Fergus.
Yeah, Fergie.
Well, we all signed on to kill a brood mother, so.
Yeah.
The whole Broodmother quest completely did not plan that at all. Did not have. I did not plan on having you guys do anything with any Broodmother. She wasn't even in this universe. But Andrea was like, "Hey, you got this Darkspawn problem. Maybe we can help out." And I'm like, "Oh, they want to attack the Darkspawn. Well then." Broodmother, you're back in.
It was only when she asked that you decided, oh, the mother, she's a thing?
Yeah. I didn't intend for the mother to be a thing. I didn't intend for her to exist in this storyline. But
this whole quest is going to be like, oh my goodness, that's really interesting.
Completely out of the blue. I had to roll with that punch because it's like, oh, she's offering that. Well, I mean, just killing a bunch of random Darkspawn's that's kind of boring. I'm gonna have to do something else. Oh yeah, let's bring the mother back in. This fits perfectly with the architect and all that.
Sorry, guys.
No, well, because this is actually more. I actually like this better because the other thing I was planning on having you do for the next session was not nearly as fun and interesting. So I'm actually happy that Andrea did it because like, oh, okay, now the next session is actually going to be more awesome than it was before.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious how King Kyne's going to be involved then, because you confirmed that Andrew was going to be in next session, but we're heading off to the mother. So I'm curious as to where Kyne fits into all that.
Sure you are.
He is the mother.
Sure you are.
I was waiting for that smirk, yeah.
So here's what we do. We all become wardens. We might lose one or two of us, but come on, we'll just be reborn. We're souls, right? So we all become wardens. We dogpile the mother. We force her to drink one of our blood. Sorry, Andrea. And she gets sentient, and we start teaching her the benefits of, birth control. Payne's practical products for her. We have a customer for life.
Oh god. Yeah, I don't know. Now that Andrea knows that it's blood magic, I'm pretty sure she won't be cool with that.
It's like, no.
Because before the joining was just a secret, so
Yeah.
Well, yes.
we didn't know, but
Nope, you didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The combat was fun.
Oh my god, that was so much fun.
The combat was meant to be a puzzle. I did not intend for you to actually. If you didn't play your cards right, then yeah, those things would have killed you. Because there were just so many of them. Mm-hmm. The fact that Kenna was able to huddle them all in one spot was pretty clutch. I purposely put in the different things like the flammable gas. Things like that. I purposely put things in just to give you ideas of how you could solve this problem. I actually had intended for you guys. Well, I thought that how you could have solved the problem would have been to walk around, because there was actually a much shorter gap. If you actually went to the other side of the map, there was a far smaller gap that you got with far less deep stalkers. So if you went that way and explored a little bit more, you would have had a much easier time. But this ended up being a lot more.
Spending forever trying to make a bridge, an ice bridge that people slipped off of. Good job.
I kept trying.
Sometimes it pays to be a little bit more of a tourist on a screen.
Yeah. I want Theo to be better at using his bracer without assistance as well. So now I have to plunge stuff into magic, which
Ditto.
Sure, yeah, because it's like he's not. He has to roll well just to get an average roll with his magic at the moment, and he had a lot of blunders in that session.
Yeah, same. So I think next time we have a lot of downtime, we can just pretty much assume that Andrea is going to be sitting and teaching us a lot of focus and all that
Yeah.
good stuff.
Meditate about primal magic.
This is boring.
Yeah, and I apologize. I do apologize for the non-casters feeling like, oh gosh, I have to take magic. I apologize for that. My mentality for something like this, where you don't go to combat that often. You do go into combat, but it's not the biggest part of the game, and magic normally is a throwaway. Like, nobody uses magic if you're not a caster. It's just a throwaway thing. So I wanted to make, every time you decided to level up an ability score, I wanted to make the choice harder purposely. because otherwise ideally I want to make it so that there is no obvious trash ability score. I wanted all of the ability scores to be valuable. I mean, for Andrea, even things like strength could be useful, like it could have in this situation where she had to fly and try to carry people up if she had a little bit more strength. So even for a caster, something like strength isn't necessarily a throwaway, because it could have come in handy in this particular situation.
Yeah.
That is until you start looking at the Templar specialization, where you need everything.
That being said,
Yeah.
I did have a system built in to make it easier on you with rolling your bracer magic rolls. But you decided to do things in a different order.
Oh, Eagle.
Eagle holes, damn you!
So because you did things in a different order, that system never came into play, and you're kind of struggling. But I think it's realistic too. You don't understand your bracers. It's harder for you to figure out how to use them. Maybe once you learn a little bit more about the bracers, it might magically be easier.
I like that we brought that up in session, too. We were like, we need to figure these bracers out. Obviously, we could find out that information in Eagle's Reach, but we can't go there right now because we've got all this other crap we have to do. So let's just play. Let's play with magic today.
So again, I apologize. I had something in place to help you. It's just, you just didn't go there yet. So.
Yeah. It is tricky because, like, in the beginning it was like we're not really using our braces much, even though it was like it's a very big part of the campaign. It's clearly very key to our characters, and then we're all like, all right, let's start using our braces. Oh, me and Hallie were just struggling to roll enough to actually use it. Like,
Yeah.
But again, I think that's realistic.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's realistic, and I think that if you eventually gain more knowledge, then you will appreciate the benefits of said knowledge more, since you've had to suffer through it going up to that point.
Sure.
So instead of getting it, in, say, session 4.
Well,
for example.
you have inspired me. I'm going to be the most magical dwarf ever.
Like father, like daughter.
Oh.
Why, Huck? Why?
You said Theoben. People kept saying Theoben got it easy in session 1, and I'm like, that's because he hasn't gone through the other sessions yet. He got it easy in session 1. There's other things going on with him later. So.
Kimberly and I have said that it's likely as well that Andrea and Theo will be having a talk about Amelia next session as well.
Good.
So I'm emotionally prepping for that.
Oh, dear.
All right. During that first scene, sorry, buddy. During that first scene, what did Theo say? He said, "I would have thrown a boulder at the person who killed my wife," and I was like, Andrea's gonna store that away and probably talk about it later. That was kind of a big red flag, and it wasn't brought up because we were like yelling and stuff at the moment. But
Sure.
that's gonna come back.
Yeah, and I mean, we realized through talking that actually Andrea doesn't know the specifics of how his wife died, and she might have a reaction to that because she died in approving, which is very similar to, well, I mean, the Tevinter ring that she fights in is based off the Orzammar provings, so they're very similar.
I also wanted to talk to Cedric next time because he looks like he is all kinds of messed up at the end of the
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah.
One thing that Cedric I felt was kind of different from the party is just like his bracer, like the way he interacts with his bracers. It's like, yeah, he'll use it from time to time, but this past session when we were all like, you know what, let's try it and stuff. Like, let's see what we can do with it. First, there was the not the magical mishap, but like that mishap when Andrea and Theobin
Caused a quicksand.
caused
Yeah.
quicksand, and like people had to rush in and save them. So that kind of was like, all right, these things can mess us up as well. So I got to be worrisome about that. And then when he combined it, I think the selling point is when he combined it with
Halasair.
Halasair, yeah. A lot of people were like, "Whoa, cool! Look at that!" And he was like, "Oh no! Like that is
That gives you
too
so much
power."
damage.
Like, oh no! Like he's like, "All right." So we combine these, and like it can do some like crazy, destructive things. And like a lot of people were like, "Oh, cool!" And he was like, "All right, I'm gonna have to be more reserved about it now."
Let me ask you this question, Kevin. Why did Cedric take a dose of lyrium when he did?
Honestly, it was for out of character. He totally forgot. I totally forgot to do it last session.
Okay.
But like I wanted to do it last session because we were going into Deventer, and that has a lot of magic-y stuff. And he was like I was like, maybe I should like do this just so he can get all those benefits. But he took the dose this time just in case, because he knew that we were going after like King Kine and Sevion, and like there's just dangers there, and he doesn't know who Sevion's surrounding himself with. And then there's still the Andrea problem where it's like, all right, I need to start like doing my job more, and like this can aid me. Like I'm gonna only use it in like special circumstances, but I still need this to help me with my job. So, and especially like after like he called Andrea his charge to the guard, that kind of like spurred him to take the dose of lyrium, because he's like, all right, this is my charge, I need to start looking after her, even if she doesn't want it. That's what I need to start doing.
She doesn't not want it. She was in a circle. She was happy there, sort of. Not really, but you know, she's used to being watched.
Simpler.
Let's talk Kal-Sharok.
Yeah, that was stressful. The whole time was stressful.
I'm glad it was included, though. I mean, Kal-Sharok fascinates me. I mean, I'm a huge Orzammar nerd, but Kal-Sharok is something that actually, like, I've bounced back and forth from reading about, so experiencing it was really cool.
Yeah.
It also gave Theobin, I guess, more of a time to shine, I suppose, because he was the only one that was able to speak to the Paragon-elect. That was really cool for me. And scary, I won't lie. Because I was like, if I had a group here, then I could be like, you know, guys, any other questions? Anything else we could? But I had to like think on my feet and try to get to the point.
And Paragon-elect doesn't make it easy.
He didn't, but I appreciated that. that because not, you know, it's not like a BioWare game where you can spend the ages at the dialogue menu deciding what to do.
Right,
you know, tabletop is a
Mm-hmm.
lot more live action, so I appreciated being pushed. And the Paragon like looking impatient, I really appreciated that. I wasn't expecting it to be so short, like because Kal-Sharok had been kind of floating around for a while. I wasn't expecting we'd be there and then can kind of be gone and then we'd be leaving again, so that was interesting. Although, you know, we did have that moment, I think, before we had the mother part. I think we were all kind of like, well, what do we do now? You know, because King Kine has been told he's coming here, but he's not here. Where is he?
Mm-hmm.
And like we didn't know what to do up until the mother. So
yeah. I think you will definitely have, depending on how things play out next session, that you'll definitely have more Kal-Sharok time with Andrew, because that's going to be a big part. What I'm very curious about, and Andrew's not going to see this until after it's recorded, there are a lot of scenes. You guys are making a lot of decisions, but there are definitely certain decisions with this scene that is solely Kyne's decision. So I'm very curious to see how Andrew is going to end up role-playing his character. And a lot of what he does is probably going to be influenced by what the circumstances happens that happens in the next session. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what he does, because it's he's affecting this storyline as well. And I'm
cool.
Part of me is curious, but also part of me is a little scared. But we'll see.
Has he given you any indication as to like where his character's going with this, or is it a total surprise to you as well?
I am purposely keeping Andrew as blind to things as Kyne is. So I'm not telling. All I'm telling Andrew is you spoke with the guy in Kal-Sharok. He's like, there's these darkspawn that's bothering us. They're talking, which means they're dangerous. It's like, don't believe anything they say, blah 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 blah. And that's all I'm gonna tell him with that. So he doesn't have any Razakale stuff. He hasn't seen the architect yet. So
oh my goodness, Razakale, that'll be interesting.
I don't know how I'm
talking about
like I don't know how I'm gonna react to Kyne, like if he's instantly against like Razakale or the other Darkspawn, because I think I'll be like, I'm sorry Theo, but dude's a jerk. I'm kind of thinking we should let Savian just kill him. Like
Oh
my god.
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I really hope that conversation happens.
Yeah, no. Kyne's his hero. He wouldn't do that. Like,
I just don't
know. Theo's origin story, he was rescued by Kyne. Orzammar was falling. He helped the party of season 1. He wasn't the sole person that brought Orzammar back to strength. But I mean, him being a king has done a lot of good for Orzammar, and I think I've done my best to roleplay how much Theo admires him. So yeah, no, that's gonna be interesting.
Andrew's going to be placed in a very, very compromising position, because even if Kyne wants to help the Darkspawn, Theoben makes a very, very, very valid point from the last session. It's not going to go over very well with the rest of the dwarves in Orzammar.
Right.
And as it is, there's been a few hits on Kyne's life because he's just been way too radical with his decisions. A lot of the traditionalist dwarves don't like that, and so I think the majority of the dwarves are cool with it, but there are a few that have been secretly trying to stag a dagger in his back in his sleep. Yeah. This isn't going to help matters. So it's one of those, it's a balance of, yeah, I want to do this thing, but I can only be effective and continuing on what I'm doing while I'm still alive. Yeah. If I die and somebody succeeds me and they end up, going after the talking darkspawn anyway, everything was moot. Was moot. It's a totally moot point. Didn't fix anything, and things are now worse, and you're back to square one. So he has to play this game very carefully.
Yeah, a very politically dangerous position for him to be in favor of them.
Yeah. Oh, man. I love Kyne a lot, but I don't think Andrew would mind. But by the end of this season, his life is not guaranteed. We'll see. We're gonna see what happens, but it all depends on how things play out. But hopefully as the GM, I love Andrew and I love Kyne's character, but we just have to see how things play out. And a lot of it starts with your next session, how that's going to play out. Oh my god! No pressure.
Will we go down as the season that killed Dawnforge cast? Oh my god.
No pressure.
Oh man.
I'm gonna write the biggest apology letter to Andrew if that happens.
Well, don't say anything to him yet.
Yeah.
Don't spoil anything yet.
Yeah.
So,
Start the oven. We're gonna have to make some cookies.
Yeah. Sorry, we killed your character.
I know. I mean, Andrea just sicked Sevion on him, so.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, it's gonna be really hard for her because she on one end you've got somebody who's trying to kill people who haven't done anything, like they've done nothing wrong, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to kill these people who at present aren't really doing anything bad. Their families, and you're talking about committing genocide on their people, and that's really not okay. And then on the other end, the dwarves are in a really compromising position, and they're obviously going to have issue with talking Darkspawn. But it's one of those things where Andrea's like, yeah, but you're not doing it for political reasons. These are people, like they're children. Like that's messed up. So it'll be really hard on her, especially since she's close friends with Razakale. Like it'll be really, really hard on her.
Yeah.
Would you really sick Sevion on him?
No, I wouldn't really do that.
One way or the other, it's a whole bunch of innocents about to die. Come on.
Yeah. It could really tear up the party. Like depending on what, like Andrew could really just jack this party up big time. Like we thought like the magic dwarves was like a huge like wave that rocked our boat, but the typhoon's coming.
Like I feel like no matter what this party goes up against, though, I think it'll be we're never all gonna agree, but it'll be down to how our characters handle those disagreements. Yeah. And I feel like when the dwarven mages came up, the party wasn't really that close yet. They weren't that established when we did that, and so it was really easy for everyone to be in their own kind of mindset on the issue and not compromise. I feel like the group has made some headway since then, and I'm hoping that even if things do, there are conflicts of opinion, that they can build on what they've already established with each other as friendships to at least not, want to start attacking each other or storming off, or that they'd be able to handle it better now that we're in.
No, I was just gonna say, I think we would. I think we're a lot better at talking to each other now than we were even 2 sessions ago. Like we're getting a lot better.
Yeah. But you have other people involved now. And I'm not just talking about Razagale's people and Kal-Sharok, but I'm talking and King Kine. I'm talking about Orzammar as well. So I can't stress enough that nobody's safe. Kine's not safe. Depending on how things play out next, in the next session, Razakale may or may not want to compromise about certain things. Razakale's not safe. None of the heroes of Ferelden are safe. I mean, Maximilian can die if Hugh ends up getting cured from tranquility somehow, and you don't destroy that painting. So none of the previous heroes of Ferelden are safe either. Nobody's safe. So just...
It's too much. You broke Sam.
I broke Sam. But we didn't break her soul. We didn't break her soul.
That was a hard scene. That was hard.
Yes.
I was crying really bad.
Oh, baby.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
It's very interesting, the themes that are coming out of this campaign, the soul and memories and what makes you who you are. I particularly liked Cedric and Theo's scene for that, for the memories aspect of it. And totally. Andrea's was a good one for the soul.
Yeah. That's been eating at me since session 3.
Yeah. The soul definitely plays a big part in the story.
Definitely.
Oh, man. Ooh.
Yeah. I think you're starting to see the overarching storyline. Glimpses. So.
That's interesting.
Is Symbiote too? Like, what the?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure he'll pop up when you least expect it.
Yeah. Probably when we're in a very delicate situation where exploding a place might not be a good thing.
Introducing him to the Paragon elect would be amusing.
Amusing, yes.
Yeah.
Which would be so
Paragon
if
elected-
he magically killed a bunch of Darkspawn and got in well with Kal-Sharok.
Paragon elect didn't
What
seem
did
all that
he say
interested.
about Sevion? I forget. What did the Paragon elect say about him? He's like, sounds terrible or something.
Yeah,
He
we
said,
would not take that
"Tall blonde, a tall blonde human sounds disgusting. I can't say I've had the displeasure.
I hope
haven't
he
had
has
the displeasure."
She has.
Yeah, I don't care. Theo and Sevian are not bros anymore. He's woken up.
Good.
And someone finally told Theo, it's like, wait, what?
Yeah. That was such a good conversation. Just like, nobody told you?
Yeah. Well, I was like, it's those triple ones were eating away at me, and like I wanted it to make story sense so badly, that I asked myself, why exactly would Theo buy everything Sevian? Because yes, Sevian may be charming and charismatic, but it was also a very hard sell to a dwarf who was already very suspicious of, people that just swoop in and hand you the Anvil of the Void, given what he knew. So it was very interesting for me to think, why would Theo believe that? And the answer that I came to was what I expressed in session. That
I loved that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that you were able to find a reason, so that, because I know that you had a hard time, you were struggling with that dice roll, because I felt bad when you said, I haven't felt so disconnected from my character.
Yeah.
Which I understand completely, but you were a good sport about it, and you took it to the next level by coming up with an in-game reason. Which it ended up becoming a really good scene because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything else before we end?
I got to turn into an elemental.
Yes, you did.
That was pretty awesome.
Just wanna snitch that in right before we end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super cool.
That was
I'm
really
excited.
cool.
I like that it's more like utility stuff rather than just like full on damage. You have
Right.
to be creative in how I use it.
Just don't turn into
everyone
a doll.
else. I don't think.
I was waiting for the frozen Kenna bridge. I was waiting for that.
Let me just like fantastic for this, you guys, and then just it won't work.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering what would have happened if we had the Kenna bridge, and then Esbjorn was trying to cross it, and then he fell, and then he clamped on, and it cracked. That would be really interesting.
You take 100 points of damage. Oops.
I'll admit it now. I'm not sure the bear was the best idea for a second party member. Just throwing that out there.
No, I'm glad we're taking him now
Me
because
too.
we're fighting the brood mother. Like,
I want the bear. I want the bear.
He's gonna bite, man. I'm excited. I'm gonna deck him out. We're gonna go like full on war paint.
Yes.
Nice.
I'm super excited for our next session. We're gonna coordinate the fuck out of it. It's gonna be awesome.
What's he gonna do? Getting ready to fight the Darkspawn.
Put on your wall paint.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it as well, because I think we were all kind of saying, like, we've had combat so far, but we haven't had, like, big combat. We haven't had, like, a mini-boss or anything for the party to really team together for a long amount of time to really take down. So it's going to be really fun.
Yes.
Are we allowed to, like, strategize about how we could interact our, like... Are we allowed to come up with plans? In a sense, like, does that make sense? I don't know if I'm making
You mean
sense.
like playbook kind of thing?
Yeah, like okay, if it's
Yeah.
this sort of situation, we do this, this, and this.
I think that's realistic. You guys are traveling through the desert for a week.
Oh,
I
okay.
think it's reasonable to say that at some point you guys talked like combat strategy with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
We'll probably do that though.
Yeah, I'm worried about the warriors with the tentacle things with the mother, because those were awful in Origins.
Yep.
We're all gonna die, and it's just gonna be the bear who kills the brood mother.
Yeah, totally.